Aztec Fanfest. Ted Mendenhall, Jeff Lasky with you, and we're pleased to be joined by Aztec head football coach Rocky Long. Coach, first of all, really appreciate you coming over here and giving us a few minutes. A big day today, a chance for the fans to see the boys come out and hit each other a little bit.
Yeah, it's a big day for us to evaluate players and decide on who the starters are, who the backups are, and it's fun to do it in front of some other people besides just ourselves.
Coach, what are you looking to accomplish with today's scrimmage?
Well, I think mostly we're trying to evaluate players. We'll get into game preparation starting next week where we start working on Eastern Illinois. But we have a lot of players out there that haven't solidified positions. We have a couple, 3 starter positions that haven't been solidified yet. So we're really going to go out there, and the guys we know are going to start aren't going to play very much. And then we're going to let the rest of them battle it out to see who gets a starting assignment or a backup assignment.
Regardless of whether it's starters or guys who are fighting for a spot with the 2s or the 3s, what are the things that you can see in a scrimmage environment that's just different from what you might see during the week during drills?
Well, there's one thing. You can see how aggressive you are and how intense you are, and you can it's a bad word in our vocabulary, but you can tell who's soft or timid. You can't tell that unless you're going live. Unless you're going full speed, you can't tell who's timid or who's soft because there's some guys that look really, really good in just helmets when they're running around out there, but then the pads come on and they start hitting each other, and it changes who's a real football player and who's not.
Is it kind of strange in an environment where you're coaching against your own coaches? You know the offense, you know the defense, so how do you try to structure it so that your squads are getting what they need?
Well, our first game, their head coach of our first team we play is a San Diego native. He went to Morris High School, so he'll have friends here watching. So we're going to be very vanilla on both offense and defense and let the kids just play. I mean, there should not be very many assignment errors, and we let them play, and then we get to see who the good players are.
And, Coach, obviously the practices have been over on the Mesa. How about the effect of them getting to practice here at what becomes Aztec Warrior Stadium starting on August 31st?
I'm impressed that we call it that because this is Aztec Warrior Stadium. We have a few guys that we're counting on playing this year that haven't been in the stadium. So we do the whole routine. We went and basically had pregame meal all together. We got on the buses, came over here. They went into the different locker rooms. We have to split up our offense and defense in locker rooms. We'll go through the same routine to warm up and all those kind of things. So it's a learning experience for those that haven't been here before. And even the guys that are experienced of being here, I think they get more excited about playing in the stadium than they do practicing on a practice field.
For the guys who are going to be out there on the field and for the fans who are out here seeing these guys for the first time, who are some of these players that maybe the fans don't know their names yet, but they're going to be learning their names very soon?
Well, I think for most fans it's the guys on offense, So we got 4 running backs that are going to be competing tonight. Adam Oema probably won't play and probably won't carry the ball. We got a new freshman, P.J. Humphrey, that's looked really good in practice. Chase Price played a little bit last year. I'm trying to think of him. Deshaun Hardwick is a local guy that's had a real good fall. Dwayne Garrett is on all our special teams and played quite a bit last year. So those guys are having a great battle. A great battle to see who the backup running back's going to be. Then at wide receiver, we got some guys coming back that people don't know that we think are really good receivers. Zell Ruffin, Tim Vizzi, Dylan Denzel. Most of them know Colin Lockett because he was a great return guy last year. But so the receivers, they'll see some guys they haven't seen before, and all the running backs they haven't seen before.
And, of course, you're working with a new offensive coordinator. Of course, you have a great deal of familiarity with Bob Toledo, but is he doing anything that's radically different from what Aztecs have seen the last few years?
Well, I'm glad you say radically. No, he's not doing anything different radically. There are a few changes. There's a few small changes going on, and there's some things that we're going to do that we haven't done last year, and mostly it's his responsibility and his personality that make those things happen, but you're not going to see any of those tonight because those are secret.
Coach, how do you start to develop the identity of your team as the season goes along? And I look at last year as an example. You had Ryan Katz as your starting quarterback, but the team really evolved after Katz got injured. Adam Dingwell takes over as the quarterback, and the team took off and won those final 7 games going into the bowl game. So how do you evaluate the identity of your team here in August versus what it's going to be as the season goes along?
I think that's impossible. What happens is you like to have a good starting quarterback, and we think Adam Dingwell is. I think the quarterback's the most important position on your team. But what people don't realize, we developed last year mostly in the offensive line and defensive line. As our line started getting better, guess what? We started playing better on offense. We started playing better on defense, and we won a few games. I think we won 7 in a row, and that was after the line of scrimmage matured and started playing better, because the skill guys can't perform if the line of scrimmage is not being handled the right way. I think we have veterans coming back in the defensive line that we didn't have last year. Our offensive line, we got to find 2 new starters, so the offensive line, or the offense might start a little slow, and you can't blame that on quarterbacks and running backs and receivers all the time. Last year we couldn't get a pass rush, and guess what? The defensive backs didn't look very good. It's funny how all that goes together.
Mm-hmm. When you're trying to put together your offensive line, how much of it is the skill of the player at each position, and how much of it is the ability to mesh with those other 4 guys who may be on either side of them?
I think you hit the right point. I think we have some very talented linemen. I mean, we probably have 10 really talented offensive linemen that are also big and strong. But them meshing together and them understanding assignments, no one really realizes how complicated the offensive line is. They have combo blocks. They have to fan. They have to work inside. They have to slide one way or the other, and it all can happen in an instant. As soon as the ball is snapped, some of those things change when the defense changes or a different guy blitzes. So they all have to see the same thing, and they all have to react as one, and that's much more difficult than learning the skills of the job.
So what are the drills like then with these guys when you're in practice to try to get all that hammered out before the first game?
Well, I think it's an advantage to be against our defense. Our defense is very unusual. For a college defense, it's very complex, and it's kind of different. It's much more difficult for those guys to block our defense than it is most people's defenses. Now you come down to skill and ability of the defense you're trying to block. But if they can handle it after a couple weeks in practice with us, they can handle most things they're going to see throughout the season.
Aztecs football head coach Rocky Long joining us. Give us some keys as to what makes a good 3-3-5 defense, both up front and in the secondary. What are you looking for?
Well, number one, you have to have athletes at every position. A lot of people play defensive linemen, and you'll notice how big and strong they are. They eat up space. They're gap defenders. We don't have a gap defender on our defense. Everybody on our defense is moving every snap. So you have to have some athletes. Even our defensive linemen drop in coverage. Our defensive linemen cover tight ends. Our defensive linemen cover back out of the backfield. At linebacker, sometimes those guys have to be defensive linemen. We put them down in the stand. Sometimes we slide them up. They have to be defensive linemen. And a lot of our defensive backs not only have to be defensive backs, we'll slide them up and they have to play linebacker. So you have to have a lot of athletic ability and then some toughness about you, because